I used to like Halloween until I became a pizza delivery guy. This happened before people started paying for pizza online. Back then, it was easy for idiots to order pizza to someone else's house as a prank. It never hurt the target, only the delivery place, but kids thought it was funny. Halloween was the worst for that. Almost a third of deliveries ended up being fake. I dreaded working that night, but I was a sophomore in college and needed the money. The tips were good, so I put up with it. That Halloween turned out to be surprisingly prank-free. I worked from noon until closing around 11 and made a couple $100 in tips. I was in a good mood and ready to go home when a last-minute order came in. My manager was about to tell the caller delivery hours were over, but I offered to take it since I was heading out anyway. The address was on a country road far from town. The drive was long but peaceful, with trees arching over the gravel road and leaves covering the ground. Eventually, I saw the house. It was a 2-story country-style place with a small mailbox at the end of the driveway and a jack-o'-lantern on the porch steps. Triangle eyes, triangle nose, jagged grin, the classic kind. I pulled in, confirmed the address, and walked to the porch. Only 2 lights were visible, a faint glow from what looked like the living room and the jack-o'-lantern. There was no doorbell, so I knocked on the screen door. No answer. After a few more tries, the door finally opened. Standing just behind it was a very tall, thin person wrapped in a thick crocheted shawl covering their head and shoulders. I assumed it was an old woman. I held up the box. "I have your pizza. That will be $11.29. The woman nodded. "Won't you come inside?" she asked. I hated going inside customers' houses, and I especially did not want to step inside this one. I told her I could wait on the porch. She insisted. "My money's in the kitchen. Won't you come in, please?" Against my better judgment, I stepped in. She shut the door behind me. The house was dim, lit only by a single lamp with a thick shade that barely gave off light. Everything smelled musty and old. The place felt wrong. The woman shuffled into the kitchen, but never turned on a light. I stayed back near the doorway, unwilling to step further. After a moment, she reappeared in the frame of the kitchen door. "Won't you come in?" she whispered. The shadows made it hard to see her face. She swayed a little as she stood there. Then I noticed something glint near her shawl. A knife. Panic rose in my chest. I hoped she hadn't noticed me spot it. She whispered again, beckoning me. "Won't you come in?" I didn't care about the money anymore. I dropped the pizza on the floor and backed away. My foot caught on a lump in the carpet and I fell hard. In blind terror, I scrambled up and bolted for the door. As I yanked it open, I heard another voice from outside. "Won't you come in?" I looked over. A man was sitting in the dark on a rocking chair, holding the jack-o'-lantern in his lap. He grinned at me with the creepiest smile I had ever seen. I had no idea how long he had been sitting there. I shoved open the screen door, ran to my car, and peeled out of the driveway. I didn't call the police, but I told my boss. He said it was probably just a Halloween prank. Maybe he was right. They seemed a bit old for pranks, but who knows? What I do know is that the woman had a knife, and I had fallen within her reach. She could have come after me, but didn't. I never went back there again, and after that night, prank orders never bothered me anymore.
A follower named Daniel sent me this story. You ever have one of those older brothers who love to pull cruel pranks and scare you half to death? The kind who tries to convince you there's a monster under your bed or that the boogeyman lives in your closet. Well, I didn't have one. I had a younger brother who was like that. My little brother Tommy was 3 years younger than me and small for his age. Physically, he wasn't threatening at all, but mentally, his imagination could scare people 3 or 4 times his age. The worst thing he ever did to me happened when we moved into a new house in a subdivision. For the first time, all 4 of us kids got our own rooms. Being the second oldest, I got the second choice of bedrooms. The one I picked wasn't just the second biggest, it also had a unique feature. Inside the closet was a trapdoor that led underneath the house. It was strange, but I thought it was neat. The space underneath wasn't really a crawl space since you could stand up straight in it. My brother Tommy loved that trapdoor and was furious that I had chosen the room. For weeks he begged me to trade rooms, but I refused. Finally, one day he snapped. "Fine, if you don't want to trade rooms with me, then I'll leave you and Matilda alone," he said as he started to walk out. I stopped him and asked, "Matilda?" Tommy smirked. "She's a homeless woman who lives in the crawl space. She was here before we moved in. Once we showed up, she had to hide underneath. I was trying to be nice by offering to take this room off your hands since I'm not as big a chicken as you, but if you want her, then fine." With that, he left. I had to admit, he outdid himself this time. It gave me chills, even though I knew it was just his way of trying to scare me into trading rooms. But Tommy didn't let it go. Every day he taunted me about Matilda, describing her as an ugly old woman in a ratty blue dress who snuck into the house for food when we weren't home. He claimed she cooked over a fire in the crawl space and that he often spoke to her. According to him, she had even agreed to help him get my room, but only when she chose the right time. It was a clever trick because it kept me on edge all the time. Every night before bed, Tommy would stand outside my door singing about how Matilda lived in the crawl space. I didn't believe him, but it still got to me. As I lay in bed, I always found myself glancing at that trapdoor. A week later, Tommy was teasing me again about Matilda when we suddenly heard a noise. He froze and slowly turned toward the closet. "What the hell?" he whispered, fear flashing across his face. The trapdoor lifted slightly. Tommy jumped, and I scrambled onto my bed. "Holy crap!" he shouted. "That must be Matilda!" I yelled back. He looked at me confused. "Dude, what are you talking about? You know I made that up to get this room." But the trapdoor banged again. Tommy screamed and ran to the far side of the room, cowering in the corner. I told him, "I'm going to check it out." He begged me not to, but I said, "You're my little brother. If someone's down there, I need to protect you." He actually started crying as I walked toward the trapdoor. I bent down, reached for the brass ring, and slowly pulled it open. Suddenly, the door was ripped out of my hands and a hand shot up, grabbing my wrist. I screamed as it held me tightly, refusing to let go. Tommy screamed even louder, crying for our parents. The commotion brought them running. My mom rushed to comfort Tommy, while my dad yanked the trapdoor fully open. Standing below us in the crawl space was our older brother Joseph, grinning like an idiot, still clutching my arm. My dad saw my grin on my face too, because in that moment, Tommy, the self-proclaimed king of horror, was the one being terrified. Remember when I said I didn't have an older brother who liked to torment me? That was true. But that night, Tommy definitely did.
Enjoying the story so far? If creepy tales are your thing, don't forget to like the video, leave a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel. And make sure to turn on notifications so you never miss what's coming next. Got a scary story of your own? If you have a true horror experience you'd like me to share on the channel, send it to the email address listed in the video description. Your story could be featured in an upcoming episode. Now, back to the horror. A follower named Melissa sent me this story. This happened when I was about 5 or 6 years old. It still comes up at family gatherings from time to time. It might not be the scariest story you'll ever hear, but it was one of the most terrifying things I've experienced as a child. For context, I have a very large extended family. We all lived within 30 minutes of each other in the suburbs of a big city. The area was considered safe, The neighbors all knew each other, and people even left their cars unlocked in their driveways. When I was younger, my grandma used to watch my cousin and me. She had 2 dogs at the time. Benji was sweet and playful, the one we always preferred. Cheyenne was nice enough, but she mostly kept to herself. We often played outside in the fenced yard, sometimes supervised, sometimes not. Since it was a quiet, safe neighborhood, nobody expected anything unusual. One afternoon, while we were playing in the yard with our toy cars, Cheyenne was lying off to the side. Suddenly, a man appeared on the other side of the fence. He looked to be about 50 years old and was standing no more than 20 feet away. He began talking to us. At first, he seemed friendly, but I was too young to understand the danger. My cousin and I cautiously walked a little closer, though we still kept a bit of distance. As the man chatted, Cheyenne moved closer to us, growling low and taking a protective stance. Then, the man tried to call us over to him. We refused, and that clearly upset him. Without warning, he grabbed the fence and tried to climb over. I had never been so afraid in my life. Cheyenne went absolutely wild, barking and snarling, ready to attack if he got over. Startled, the man quickly dropped back down, clearly not expecting such a ferocious dog. My grandma heard the commotion and rushed outside. She saw the man at the fence, Cheyenne going berserk, and us standing there frozen. She screamed at the top of her lungs, and the man took off running down the road. She pulled us inside immediately and sat us down, explaining the idea of stranger danger for the first time. She had lived in that neighborhood for years, but had no idea who the man was. He wasn't a neighbor or anyone familiar. For the rest of the day, Cheyenne refused to leave our sides. From that day on, I always felt uneasy around her, not because of what she did, but because I had witnessed how terrifying she could be when protecting us. Looking back, I realized she saved us. That day taught me a valuable lesson. I will always trust my dogs. Their instincts are usually right, and I'll never know what that man was planning. What I do know is that if Cheyenne hadn't been outside with us, things could have ended very differently. Thanks to Melissa for sharing the story. A follower named Jessica sent me this story. It was Halloween night and trick-or-treating was already over by 8 p.m. This was back when people always went door to door in the dark. I had gone to bed long after the kids were done making their rounds, but on this particular night, my doorbell suddenly rang. I woke up groggy and looked over at the clock. It was 12:30. I wondered who could possibly be ringing my doorbell so late. Staggering out of bed and down the stairs, I opened the front door and saw something strange. A little girl, probably no more than 8 years old, stood there wearing a fairy princess costume and a mask. She kept her head down and whispered, "Trick or treat." I was confused, not only about why she was out so late, but why she thought anyone would still be handing out candy at that hour. I looked over at the bowl on my table and saw there were still a few mini Butterfingers left. Not really knowing what else to do, I grabbed one. Before I handed it to her, I asked why she was out so late and alone. She didn't answer. She just kept staring at the ground and repeated, "Trick or treat." Feeling uneasy, I decided to give her more than usual since she was out so late. I asked her to look up at me first. When she finally raised her head, I noticed she wasn't wearing a fairy mask at all. Instead, she had on an ugly goblin mask that completely clashed with her princess costume. She silently held her bag out. I asked again why she was out so late. As I leaned in closer to observe her, she finally spoke. "I'm only allowed to say trick or treat." Through the eye holes of her mask, I could see a desperate look in her eyes. I dropped several candy bars into her bag, glancing around nervously. That's when I noticed a black RV parked across the street, one that definitely wasn't usually there. The girl lowered her head, thanked me quietly, and then ran straight toward the vehicle. She climbed inside and the RV pulled away immediately.
but not before I managed to memorize the license plate number. I called the police right away and reported what I had seen. I felt terrible afterward. That girl could have been abducted. I should have brought her into my house, and I would have if I had noticed the RV before she ran off. It's one of those moments I look back on and know I didn't do the right thing. The police took my report, but they never contacted me again. I don't know if anything ever came of it. To this day, I can only hope that nothing bad happened to that little girl, that little fairy princess.
Thanks for sticking around till the end. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to give the video a like and leave a comment with your thoughts. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a terrifying tale. See you in the next one.